Alright, we have a VOD review for a new Kiriko player on King's Row. Let's go ahead and get into it here. I haven't watched any of this already. I'm going to turn that volume down. Okay, so first thing on Kiriko specifically, whenever you heal, you have this recharge time where in that time you can use your kunais. You have the ability to throw 2 kunais for every healing burst that you use. And because there's such a lockout, there's a lockout period on whenever you're able to heal again. You don't lose anything by throwing those knives. It's a good habit to get into just so you can like do a little bit of damage, then go back to healing, and you literally don't lose anything for it. But specifically with Kiriko's weapon, it does 40 base, but on a headshot it does 120. So you do want to try to get comfortable with like trying to weave headshots. Like even if you miss a headshot and get a body shot, that's still something. And again, you don't really lose anything by healing. And then secondly, for your Suzu. It's a pretty long cooldown. You kind of want to make sure you hold it for like emergency situations where someone's definitely going to die and they need that little bit of invulnerability and healing to like survive and let you heal them back up. Or if they're affected by like a status condition, like specifically in versus their comp, the Reinhardt with Shatter, it is a stun, it's a knockdown. It knocks people down for like 2.5 seconds. If you aren't affected by that and you throw Suzu at your teammates and hit them, they'll actually be able to stand up immediately. Otherwise, they don't really have anything that you're too worried about Suzu for. So I like that you're throwing the kunais and stuff. That's a pretty good play. You do definitely want to try and back away from the Rhine. Yeah, you just have to be careful. TPing and Suzuing on your Bastion was great. But as soon as you do that, you should try and back up to a safe spot to where if he turns around and starts swinging, he's not going to be able to hit you. And also so you can try and get away from the other members of their team that's going to try and save their tank. Good TP again. I like that Suzu's just because he is really, really, really low. And again, there's not really anything else you're really trying to save it for as far as status condition goes. Okay, so right there, let me back this up just a little bit. So right there, whenever you move to save your Sigma, which is the right thing to do, I would have preferred if you had just climbed up onto the ice wall and healed him from up there. And then when the ice wall goes down, you can actually just start moving back and stuff. By putting yourself way over here in the line of sight of 2 enemies, if they were like, smarter and paying attention, they would have probably tried to kill you immediately. And then especially when the wall goes down, or as the wall's going to be going down, you should try and move into a position where you can still interact with your team and maybe swing a little bit to throw knives at the enemies, but they can't see you without trying to come at you, you know? That's a big thing because like just putting yourself over there is like really sketchy just because whenever that wall goes down there's not many places you can go except for like backing up over here. Even over here would have been pretty good or even behind the telephone booth. Just being out in the open and stuff is really scary to do. So like right here, like when the wall goes down, you're literally just like on the middle of the point. Good wall climb, good wall climb. You're pretty much doing everything for team play right now. I would just like to see more knives. Just because those headshots can completely turn a fight. Yeah, you want to be careful whenever the... Yeah, so that's unfortunate. I guess I didn't even mention that. So actually with May ult and previously Reinhardt ult are the only things that Suzu would be used for your team. So whenever the Symmetra wall goes down, or it goes up, excuse me, you kind of want to be conscious of like what side the enemy's on and what side your team is on, and you try to like, if they're not pushing through the wall to fight the enemy team, you should just go ahead and back up and just like wait until the wall comes down. Just get into a safer spot and everything. And then with Mei's ult, if you just like count a second and then Suzu yourself, it'll normally buy, not even yourself because you have teleport, but if you Suzu your teammates, they may be able to walk out of it. That's just the thing to keep, new player stuff. It's just one of those things you have to think of. But we all learn. It's all good. Biggest thing really is I just like to see you throw more knives in between your healing, just so that like, because like I said, 120 damage on somebody can completely change how a fight goes, you know. But they used a ton of ults to try and save the point there, so it's really not such a big deal. And you have 3 ults coming up. You have yours, and then Bastion and Sigma are gonna have theirs really soon.
Done playing around. Group up here.
Yeah, you're doing the right thing right now by waiting for the rest of your team to respawn.
Thanks.
Good climb. Good Suzu. Really good. You definitely saved your Sigma there. It's unfortunate. There's nothing there's like more or less nothing that you could have really done there to save the Sigma more, because unfortunately the way that the healing works is it just like heals whoever is a damaged person that it passes through, basically. So with the Bastion right in front of you, and I believe Briggs started out right in front of you as well, it was unfortunately getting sucked up by both of them, but they were, being shot on by a bunch of people, and it unfortunately never got to your Sigma. There's not that much you could have done about that specifically whenever that happened. The only thing I would have recommended is it's good to be grouped up with your team, but you don't have to play, directly on top of them, or like, just like in a big circle or group with them. Whenever the Sigma was pushing, you could have just tried to take a different angle. Honestly, your DPS should be the ones taking different angles to try and create a crossfire with the enemy team. But if your other members of your team are not willing to do it, it's good for you to do it as well. Just because whenever they grab 2 people over, if they grabbed still over there, you wouldn't have been a part of it, and you may have been able to selectively choose who you're able to help. I'm not sure that it would have made a difference. This is more just general positioning talk, And there, I think you made a good decision not to TP to the Hanzo. You really didn't know what you would have been getting into, and you knew that multiple members of their team were alive. It's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate that the team committed a couple ults to that and really didn't get too much progress done. Yeah, so with the Symmetra wall, it's just kind of one of those things. It doesn't let anything pass through it, which is really, really unfortunate. If you were in voice comms, you could have potentially talked to your team a little bit and been like, hey, if they use Symmetra wall, we just need to back away and, wait for it to go down. But it's hard to ask for that kind of communication too often. This is another general theory thing of this map specifically. So on King's Row, coming out of the attacker spawn, the right side of the bus is like the most dangerous way to come, just because you can be seen from the left side, the right side, and this high ground and everything. If it's ever possible, you definitely want to come from the left hand side, just because they can only see you from wide right over here. If you're coming from that side of the bus, they can only see you down that lane if they're peeking pretty wide on the left. But that's not really anything. That's more just a tip. So there, unfortunately, I was gonna say I didn't know she was gonna ult you, but I was gonna say just because you were already so close to your Orisa, I would have just climbed over the wall and stood on the wall to help her. I don't know that I would have committed TP, and unfortunately, because your TP's on cooldown, it looks like you're probably gonna end up getting frozen and die for it. I'm not sure how that's gonna turn out, but you do have to be a little bit careful with your cooldowns, just because your TP and your Suzu are you're like they can definitely be used to save teammates if you know what you're TPing into, but if you don't know, it's a lot better to save TP as a way to get out of a bad situation, you know? Okay, good. You were able to get out of the blizzard with Suzu. That's awesome.
My ultimate is charging. Your prayers are answered.
I don't mind the TP there as much just because it's unlikely that there was anything bad that was going to be waiting for you on the other side.
Draw strength from nature.
Unfortunate, unfortunate. So another positioning thing is that I know it was like really, really, really hectic there for a little while, but it's another situation where you may have just been better off after the enemy team was backing up and then they committed grab and everything to just play over here in this alley because you would have had a good sight line on your tank and the other DPS that was pushing in, and the enemy team wouldn't have had a very good sight on you. And if they wanted to go on you, they'd have to walk past your Orisa in order to dive you. In the heat of the moment, it can be really difficult to identify those kind of positioning tips, but it is something to keep an eye on. As like you always kind of want to make it so that you're a either a target that they don't see, or what's the best way to say this? You want to make it so that it's either really they can't see you and you're still being able to affect the battlefield, or if they do want to get on top of you, they have to commit either a bunch of resources or time, or have to walk by multiple members of your team in order to get to you. Which in this case, you would have been hard to see for most of the team, for most of the enemy team, and they would have needed to walk past your Orisa in order to get to you.
Let the kitsune guide you.
I like this ult.
Hi, sunshine.
Okay. See, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Under my protection.
It is unfortunate that your Orisa died. It's kind of hard to play Orisa into so many laser beams, especially Symmetra, just because that the ramping damage from that laser beam is crazy. They have 3 beams. Orisa's like pretty tough to play into this comp, just because one of her best defensive cooldowns, the javelin spin, just doesn't really do anything at all versus most of their team.
The breeze brings relief. Maximize your efforts.
But you're doing a pretty good job supporting. If you were a bit more comfortable on Kiriko, I would be recommending a different way of playing her, which I'll talk about towards the end. I'll probably include some clips and stuff of everything. But right now, while you're learning, I'd rather just give you basic general Kiriko play and stuff, and then when you get more comfortable with that is when you can talk more about the ability to carry with support. Another great Suzu to escape the blizzard. So right there specifically, you kind of needed to make a decision.
Hear my bell.
So right here. So you're saving your Symmetra. That's great. So the Mei ends up taking a direct hit from the Junkrat. If you would just even melee, if you would meleeed her or just shot one shuriken at her, you would have taken her out of the fight completely by killing her. I'm not sure that it would have changed that fight very much, but that was a time whenever you, by throwing a shuriken, you could have had a lot of impact.
I'm here. I have located
So now we're on defense. Just want to see how this is. Again, I do kind of want to. You do want to kind of start playing Kiriko, where you heal, use a healing burst, then throw a couple shuriken, a couple kunais, and then you go back to healing and stuff. Just because there's really just no downside to it at all. You really don't lose out on anything. If anything, by not using the kunais, you're just missing out on a ton of value.
the goddess is here.
It's a good headshot. Oh, that's unfortunate. Just barely missed her with the Suzu. Yeah, so the kunais are just so good at either killing people with two of them, or just putting a lot of pressure to the point where they can't push until they're able to be healed. You know. But yeah, from here it just looks like it's kind of the same general ideas, especially on Kiriko. So a lot of it is your hitbox is really small, but you still want to play cover as much as possible. Even right now as Zenyatta, you just kind of want to be careful. Pretty much any character that you play is going to want to play kind of similarly as far as positioning goes. So right now you're just standing in the middle of the street and you have like no cover at all. If they decided to look at you and start and just spam at you, you're probably going to die. What you want to do in most cases is play to your nearest corner, or at least inside of a doorway or just any piece of cover where if you get pushed, you only have to take like one step in order to cover your entire hitbox, and then you have multiple escape routes. By playing in the middle of the street, you give yourself you're not doing yourself any favors as far as uh, making it harder for you to be hit and making it so that you have easy escape routes in case people come flying at you. Okay. And then this is especially true for Zenyatta because his hitbox is very large. Kiriko's is very small in comparison, but you also just want to play very similar with the idea of always be in cover or just have and be close to escape routes, you know? Yeah, that's unfortunate. But yeah, if you just start integrating some of those tips, and don't get discouraged if you're just like having a hard time doing it, because using conscious thought, like actively trying to do new things in a video game, can be very difficult. And sometimes, whenever you introduce new things into that, it can create like negative consequences at first as you're getting used to it, because you have to think about things before you just didn't have to think about it. But yeah, so with Kiriko, you definitely just want to start weaving your knives and your healing just so that you can get maximum value out of it. Be a bit more careful with your TP and your Suzu, especially with TP, just because that's your best like save yourself ability. Suzu is also very good if you're not saving it specifically for a big crowd control ability. It is good to give that invulnerability to yourself for a moment, or to someone else if they absolutely need it, and then TP away if you're in danger, stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just gonna jump into the practice range real quick and record it. And then now I'm just gonna jump to the practice range, record a couple things to show you what I mean specifically, just to give you some ideas. And then I'm gonna have a couple clips from some Kiriko games, just to show you what I'm talking about in a real game too.
I'll find my own path.
So first off, I have on Kiriko a couple of settings that I like to use. So I have my swift step sensitivity, which is the teleport, on 100%. I don't know why it was on 50% there for a second, but that's just what I like to have it on. For healing, Ofuda cancels reload. I have that turned off. Basically, if you're reloading your kunais, your healing, if you hit your healing button, it won't stop the reload. The reload is actually quite a bit faster now, so you can just hold down healing while you're reloading, and it'll start healing as soon as your reload is done. And then the last thing is that I have my healing on right click and my kunais on left click, just for muscle memory reasons, because most characters Most characters do damage with left click and heal with right click, and I just wanted to keep that muscle memory between characters. So then with Kiriko, like I was saying, we'll just use this over here. So heal, and then after you shoot a burst, you can throw 2 kunais, heal, throw 2, heal, throw 2, heal, throw 2, heal, throw 2. It's just good to get into this habit. Because there's like, if you ever decide to play Baptiste as well, he has basically the exact same pattern.
Like a gentle
Because,
rain.
see, whenever I'm out of healing, I can't do anything. Like, I can't heal more by not doing anything. There's a recovery period where, for like, almost a second, you have to wait before you can throw another heal. So in that time, you can feel free to throw 2 knives because there's nothing else you can really do in that time. And then just a general tip with your ult, you basically want to start it in a good spot where it's like, imagine your team was around this area. You want to start it with your team and then have it go basically as far as it can go into the enemy backline, because a lot of members, you never know with your team comp where in the Kitsune rush your team wants to play, because everyone has a little bit of different effective range. But that's just a general tip. So like with this one, your team is free to choose where in this ult they want to play at, because like a soldier might want to play right here, whereas a Reaper, they might want to play really deep into the back line. But yeah, let's go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and put some clips in, and hopefully with all this information, you'll have something to go off of. Okay. So this is just an example of weaving, just basic. Kunai's healing, Kunai's healing. This is using Suzu to save yourself. It can be a vulnerability. And then for this clip, lastly, I use Suzu to save myself from Blizzard, and I'm able to save myself from the enemies a couple times with teleport. So I'm in danger here, and I'm able to teleport to my Zenyatta. They're still coming at us and everything, so we pop the trans. Here, I'm trying to make some distance so I can teleport to Zenyatta again. And we end up doing it, and it ends up turning this fight just a little bit by being able to take out all the... But yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to send those in. Otherwise, I hope you take everything and you use it. And if you have any other replays you want me to take a look at after you had time to try this stuff out, please let me know.